All right, are you
Yeah,
ready, Alex, to talk about some KFC Taco Bell? We're not putting it off
absolutely.
any longer. We're gonna dive
Yeah.
headfirst into some tasty, delicious knowledge.
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right, welcome back. It's your good friend Ethan here for another exciting KFC Taco Bell podcast. Now, those of you who have been listening for the whole series of 19 podcasts over the course of 5 months uh, already know my good friend and my brother, Alex. Alex, say hi.
Hey.
So, Alex, something very sad happened in the small town of Morganton, North Carolina, just a couple days ago, or just today, I believe. What was that?
Well, I'm led to believe that the Taco Bell KFC here has closed its doors for the final time.
What?
Yeah.
But how? Why would they do such a thing?
Well, see, Taco Bell and KFC are kind of wanting to move in different directions, right?
Oh,
And
we'll,
the
we'll get to
Taco Bell
that
is no
later in the
longer want.
podcast. Just you wait.
Yeah. Well, but Taco Bell wants to split off, so
They're,
they've
they're doing their own
they've
thing.
split off. Yeah, yeah, they are. And the workers from the Taco Bell KFC are now just working at Taco Bell.
That's right. We are getting a Dairy
They
Queen, which is nice. Um,
Yeah, I'm not sure when that's going up though, but
yeah, so for a while we'll just have nothing. Um, because for the viewers at home who may not be familiar with North Carolina culture, Taco Bell KFC is deeply ingrained in the mythos, I guess you'd call it, of Morganton, North Carolina. It's right next to Freedom High School, our high school, and so students always go there after school. It's pretty much the only thing to do because there's nothing to do in Morganton, North Carolina. Um, and it's just a great, if you can't decide what to eat for dinner, the family can't decide between Taco Bell or KFC, you go there and get both. You can get a big bucket of chicken, you can get some tacos, and everyone's happy. So, Alex, what are some of your favorite memories associated with Taco Bell KFC? Because we've certainly made a lot of them.
well, I think one of my favorites was actually when you weren't there. I
Those
was
tend
with
to be people's favorites.
I was with my friend Jack Swanson, and we went there after school and ran into two friends that we also knew there. And there was this guy there. He was a pretty big guy, and he had dreadlocks. And he came over and he complimented us on how we looked, and said that our friend Walt looked like a Ken doll, and made some comments about his gorgeous legs and stuff. And then when he shook our hands, I offered my left hand because I was holding something in my right. And instead of offering his left hand too, he just kind of cradled my left hand in his right and shook it slowly.
That's really
And
sweet.
it was one of the most uncomfortable moments of my life, I think.
But it's still nice of him, I feel, to reach
Yeah, no,
out to
I,
you.
I, I think he meant well.
It's hard to not mean well when you describe someone as looking like a Kindle.
Yeah, yeah, that's
It often means well.
a good point.
Um, but yeah, that's one thing that I just love about Taco Bell KFC. And one thing that I'll miss is just the characters who you meet there. Because, something about KFC Taco Bell that just brings all the interesting people out of the woodworks and just kind of puts them all in one place for your entertainment. And you can just meet all these wacky personalities just, straight on, front row seat. Uh, it's always nice. Lots of interesting people who work there and who are regular patrons there. I must say, one of my favorite characters who we meet, because of course it is North Carolina, um, was a man who I never saw inside the restaurant, but he'd always be in the parking lot. And he was an older guy who had a bike with like a Confederate flag on the back, and he had a little cardboard sign on the front of the bike that said, the South will rise again, and he just rode his bike around and was always in that parking lot.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure I actually saw the same guy at Walmart not too long ago,
Really?
or on the road beside Walmart.
Ah. Um,
Yeah,
well, Walmart is a discussion for another podcast. Um,
nice.
yeah.
Well, I think one really interesting phenomenon of the Taco KFC is its tendency to multiply your food orders once it gets to a certain point in the night.
Yes.
Probably around after 9 o'clock or so when the business really dies down.
Well, at
Um,
that point, around the 9 o'clock point, I feel the workers just want to go home and get kind of
yeah,
bored. And so, kind of for fun, they just give you extra food items. Um, but it's nice. It's part of the charm of the place. Is the workers who, they're also students who are on the grind. They know life's tough. They know times are hard. And they'll slip you an extra. Sometimes it's not even an item that you ordered. Sometimes it's like just a big quesadilla that no one asked for that they just put on your plate. Um, Sometimes it's like an extra piece of chicken. Just
yeah. When I was there with Thomas tonight, we both ordered meals that had tacos included, and the person that made them just gave us each an extra taco, which was pretty fantastic.
that's really special. That's the
Mhm.
type of
It's the
interaction
type
you.
of experience that you can't really have anywhere else.
It's a type of experience you can't really get at just a KFC or just a Taco Bell.
That's absolutely right, Ethan. And I think just last week I was there with Jack, and when I went to the register, the guy there asked me what I wanted, and I
Hmm.
said I'd like the three cookies. It's like 150 for three cookies or something,
Of
and he just
course.
reached down and handed me a stack of five, and I took them, and then I went and sat down, and he came back later, and he was like, those cookies are like 2 weeks old, right? And I think that's pretty fantastic too. That at Taco Bell, KFC, that the Taco Bell KFC, they can they'll readily give you 2 week old cookies.
Well, that's one thing that I love is the honesty because I feel like every fast food restaurant would give you two cookies or 2 week old cookies,
Yeah, yeah,
but no other fast food place would just tell you these are 2 weeks old. We don't care. We're KFC Taco Bell because KFC Taco Bell just had this. I don't know if I can really explain what it is about the atmosphere of the Morganton KFC Taco Bell, but it felt dead, but very active at the same time.
yeah. It's kind of a filthy pride.
Yes, that's a great pair of words to describe it because it's kind
Yeah,
of yeah, it's
there's nothing clean about the place. You walk
no,
in,
it's
and your
disgusting.
feet either stick to the floor or slide around in the grease.
The whole store is like your average fast food restroom, and the restrooms are about 10 times worse. So you can imagine.
Yeah, yeah. And even despite this filth, Colonel still holds his head high right above the doors.
As does the Taco Bell dog.
The Taco Bell dog is actually not there,
I,
but
I meant
the
more.
bell
I
is.
meant more metaphorically.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, it's more symbolic seeing as the Colonel is
I am
really
I am a fan
pictured.
of the symbolism of the picture of Colonel Sanders hanging on the wall. I will say that.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's as if he's watching over you.
hmm There was a worker there one night who told me not to go in an area because he had just mopped it, and I said, "Can I just go there anyways?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, why not? It's not like the mopping actually gets these floors clean. As long as they look wet, my manager lets me leave."
That's great.
hmm And then he came and sat with Jack about 30 minutes later and vaped in the middle of the Taco Bell KFC.
Um, was this someone who you knew? Because I know there are plenty of servers or cashiers who work like who go to school at Freedom or high school, and so we vaguely know them from there. Um, Sorry, was this someone you knew, or was this just like a random dude who decided to sit and vape with you?
No, this was a guy we knew.
Okay,
Not very well. I've never had a class with him. I just see him in the parking lot sometimes.
but I still feel that's something that I think is very welcoming about KFC Taco Bell, is that the workers just kind of act like they know you,
Yeah, that's true.
and in a way, it's like they're your family.
Yeah, I've never felt more comfortable in such a filthy place. You walk in and you feel just kind of welcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
The five or six, it's always crowded back behind the counter, and I could never figure out why there's so many people there. I mean, it is a Taco Bell and a KFC, so that would mean that it would have a little bit more going on in the back, with two fast food menus to deal with. But it seems like most of the time, half of them aren't doing anything, right? And they just stare vacantly at you as soon as you walk in.
Yeah, it's a very. I think they all feel very, very vacant at that restaurant. It's just something about it. All right. So now that we've talked a bit about our own personal experiences with KFC Taco Bell,
Yeah.
um, I thought I would ask if you know anything about the history of KFC Taco Bell, Alex. Um,
Um. Well, certainly not as much as I would like to, even.
well, I feel like nobody really knows as much as they'd like to. It's one of those topics that everyone is aware of KFC Taco Bell, its existence, but few people take the time to look it up and really get a grasp on the history of it, of the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so Alex, would you happen to know where the first KFC Taco Bell ever was located?
I do not.
Well, the very first KFC Taco Bell was actually founded in the town of Clayton, North Carolina, in 1995. Um, so Clayton, just for reference, it's about 15 miles southeast of Raleigh, North Carolina, which means it's about 3 hours to the east of us, of our town of Morganton, North Carolina, home of our KFC Taco Bell.
How many Taco Bell KFCs are there currently?
Well, this is something that's very difficult for me to find. It's strange because they make it. It's because there are no restaurants or establishments that are officially called KFC Taco Bell. Interestingly, it's all of them. On Google Maps, on Yelp, on anything like this. It's technically a KFC and a Taco Bell that share the same building. And so I'm not sure if this is any sort of technicality that goes in with like legal things or not. Um, I wouldn't think so because they share the same staff and everything. But
Hmm.
as far as that goes, so if you just Google KFC Taco Bell, you often won't find KFC Taco Bells, uh, or you can't find a comprehensive list. So what we actually have to do is go to the Taco Bell website and find a list of franchises by state. And then once you click on every one, the ones in the state that have a little KFC icon on their page, that means they're a KFC Taco Bell. So to find all of them in like any given state would take a very long time. Um, I did do this for Massachusetts because I was planning for part of this project to visit a real KFC Taco Bell. Ended up getting very busy with other things. I may end up still doing it by the time of the final project, so we will see. But a list just in Massachusetts alone, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. There are 20 KFC Taco Bells in Boston, or in Massachusetts, not in Boston. Um, and then there are 3 Taco Bell Pizza Huts, which also exist. Which, if you remember, there was also a Taco Bell Pizza Hut in, I believe, Statesville, North Carolina, and we'd often go there if we were going to spend like the weekend with our grandmother. We'd meet her there because it's halfway between Morganton, North Carolina, and Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where we lived. So that was a good place to stop because you can get pizza, you can get tacos. Fun for the whole family, I must say. though it doesn't quite top KFC Taco Bell, I feel. Um, yeah, but there's this guy, Al Lewin. It looks like Al Lewin. I'll say Lewin. So Al Lewin had been a KFC and Taco Bell operator um, in for about 30 years in Clayton, North Carolina. He owned several of each restaurant. It says that his company currently operates 33 KFCs, 26 Taco Bells, and 17 KFC Taco Bells. So he's this is an article from 2005.
Wow.
At the time, he was still in the business. We're not sure now. He could be gone. He was working for a while. But so there are a lot of these, and this was an idea that hadn't been thought of before. But he went for it. He thought, why not put a KFC and a Taco Bell in the same building? Because if you think about it, it's kind of a great business move, right? A fun fact: KFC and Taco Bell are both owned by Yum Brands Incorporated, and as is Pizza Hut. So those three are all under the same umbrella, which means that to combine a KFC and Taco Bell in one establishment really isn't very difficult, legally speaking. As it would be to combine like a McDonald's and a Burger King or something like that. Because these restaurants are owned by the same people, so it's just usually fine to combine them. And I believe that generally when somebody gets the licensing for the KFC in one area, they'll often get the licensing for the Taco Bell as well. So there are already a lot of managers who own both. In Morganton, North Carolina, it's Big Dave, who I know owns a lot of our fast food restaurants. And the KFC Taco Bell has a big sign outside of it that says workforbigdave.com, and that's how you work for Big Dave.
Yeah, that's right.
But so he combined this KFC and Taco Bell into one restaurant, which you think about it is a great business move, because you get your KFC items, and then you get your Taco Bell items, and they really pander to completely different markets. We used to play a little game occasionally with friends, you may remember, of just when somebody walks in the door, see if they are getting Taco Bell or getting KFC. And I'd say probably a solid 8 times out of 10, you can tell what they're getting. Because, a couple little skater boys walk in wearing their Thrasher hoodies, their skateboards. They're here for the Mountain Dew Baja Blast. They're here for Taco Bell. A large family with Confederate flag T-shirts. They walk in. They're here for KFC. So it's people who wouldn't often be in the same building coming together under one roof to celebrate KFC and Taco Bell. And then this way, it's also a lot easier because you need a smaller staff for 2 restaurants, but you're making maybe the same amount of revenue from having a KFC and a Taco Bell, while hiring half the amount of people, while only paying for one building, only paying for the heating and electricity and all that stuff for one building. The only thing I can really think of is you need to buy more food items, just because you have a bigger variety of things on the menu. But even these restaurants sometimes they cut off certain menu items that some of the more obscure Taco Bell items or KFC items often can't be found at both restaurants. Like I know a lot of KFCs will have the buffet where you can get green beans or certain items that aren't at a lot of KFCs. And often when they get
the green beans are actually a KFC Taco Bell. I just don't know.
Oh, are they?
No, yeah, they're listed and everything.
Okay.
They just don't have a buffet.
I guess I've just never gotten the green beans there. I'm wrong, but there are certain menu items that are at the individual restaurants, but not at the others.
Yeah, they have to simplify it down a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the workers though also have to be more trained.
Yes.
So your average worker at Taco Bell KFC say is much much more highly trained than just standard Taco Bell or KFC worker.
That's an interesting point that I just didn't really think about. You really need the best of the best, the cream of the crop, to work at a Taco Bell KFC. Um, which can be difficult, but I'm sure there are plenty of highly experienced fast food workers out there, and there are plenty who are willing to learn. You know, they hire a lot of high schoolers who maybe don't have a lot of experience in fast food restaurants, but this way, you know, they get experience with the taco side of fast food, and with the fried chicken side of fast food. So you know they could go if they're I can't think of really any other taco fast food places. If they're out in like California, they can go work at Del Taco. If they're in the South, they can go work at Bojangles. You know, they can take their knowledge from learning both fried chicken and tacos, and just apply this elsewhere. Whereas someone who works at Burger King, they only know burgers. They don't really know anything else. There's just not that variety there. And so I think that's something that makes Taco Bell KFC a big hotspot in North Carolina, or in Morganton, North Carolina, more specifically, is having this, this just incredible variety that you can't really get anywhere else. You know, it's the one place where if you can't decide on dinner, you go there because that's where everyone can find something to eat. Everyone will have a delicious, yummy time, and it'll be fulfilling to all of us. You know.
Yeah, and it's not just that it combines the appeal of the two locations, but it's maybe even more because you have a larger choice, right? So say that you're with some friends and you want to go get some food from somewhere, right?
Yes.
And you're trying to decide on the place, right? Taco KFC is always a good choice because even if you don't really know what you're in the mood for at that point, you can decide when you get there, and you'll have enough choice that there will almost always be something on the menu that you can eat.
You'll definitely be in the mood for something, even if you just want to get a piece of pie from KFC, or an icy from Taco Bell, something like that. Just like even a thing of macaroni, just whatever you want. I remember for a while my special that I would get, not my special, but what I would get at dinner, I'd always do a soft taco, nachos, and a thing of macaroni, um, which was kind of my thing. And at a lot of restaurants, you can't do that. Where else can you get a little bowl of macaroni with a soft taco? It's just not really. It's kind of unheard of.
I certainly can't think of any.
I can't either, and
And
that's
one other interesting thing that you can do at a Taco Bell KFC, or at least at ours, and I'm sure it's the same at others also.
hmm
At least some of them is kind of chaining off the food combinations for free food surveys. At
yes,
our Taco KFC, they gave out a survey on the receipt that would allow you to get a free go cup with the purchase of a drink when you
it was
fill out the survey.
you had to spend a certain
And
amount of money, I think, to get the survey. It was like, well, I think it was
it may have been $2.
it was either that or it was just to buy food, because I know when you just went in for a drink, you couldn't get it.
Yeah,
But if you got like a thing, so what you could do if you didn't want to spend a lot of money is you could go in and buy just a drink and a taco, and that was just a few dollars, and then you get the survey,
or less during happy hour.
or less during happy hour. That's true. It was like about $2.50, something like that, and then you can go in the next time with your survey that's all filled out and your little survey code, and you can do a drink with a free Go Cup. And so that'll only cost a drink. And Go Cup is a nice little thing. You can choose either a chicken mini, a few chicken tenders, or some popcorn nuggets, and you get potato wedges with that. So it's a nice solid little meal if you're not super hungry. So you can kind of do a long chain of those, of getting just a couple tacos and a drink, and then use that to get a Go Cup, and a couple tacos and a drink. Use that code to get a Go Cup. You can go back and forth. And I think, at a regular KFC, there aren't really any items that are that appealing to where you want to just spend a little bit of money to get your code. But at Taco Bell KFC, the taco is that perfect item that's delicious but doesn't cost much and gets you that survey code that you need. Any more thoughts on that or not?
No, I think that does it for me for the
For the survey code chain?
survey chaining.
Oh, actually, I found a fact and figure on this website. It says that there are a total of 2,813 restaurants as of 2005, so we don't know about currently. But as of 2005, there are 2,813 restaurants in the world that are a combination of Yum brands. So either KFC, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, or what does exist are KFC, Taco Bell, Pizza Huts in one building, often called Kentucky Huts.
That's pretty fantastic.
I've never been to a Kentucky Hut, but I'd love to. The one problem is, there's so much delicious food. I don't know if I could choose what to eat. Ha ha ha.
Ha ha ha.
Ha ha ha.
Right with you on that one, Ethan. And can you imagine the caliber of workers that would have to be there?
You have to have some highly trained workers who are not only familiar with KFC and Taco Bell, which is already quite the range, but
yeah,
also
but then to also have to know the
Pizza
ins and
Hut.
outs of pizza making.
Now, to be fair, I believe Pizza Hut is the brand that's restricted the most by these combination restaurants because you can't have just a whole pizza joint there. But if you have, I think they usually do a Pizza Hut Express. So I think they might only offer personal pan pizzas.
That would make sense because, of course,
because to already have a full Taco Bell
making
kitchen
a pizza is a complex task.
Yes, to already have a full Taco Bell kitchen, or even a Taco Bell KFC kitchen, and then throw in a pizza oven, it's difficult. If you see a Pizza Hut, the back kitchen room, it's a big area. They've got to have a lot of stuff back there. So you certainly couldn't operate an entire Pizza Hut inside a KFC Taco Bell unless you had a very large building, which you generally don't for these, or unless you just had a normal sized building with a very large kitchen and a small dining area, which just seems inconvenient for the customer.
Yeah, and then of course when you're getting that, triple appeal of those restaurants, I can't imagine you'd have enough space for the people who would go there.
Exactly. So at the beginning of the podcast, you mentioned something, and I had you kind of wait off until the end. Something about how Taco Bell and KFC kind of seem to be growing apart as brands. Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, I don't know much about it other than what you mentioned to me previously.
Yes.
But from what I understand, Taco Bell kind of wants to become more independent.
That is what it seems to be, yes.
Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
I would be glad to, Alex. So at the time that KFC and Taco Bell first became one in the 90s, they were at a very similar place in their lifespans, where both were sort of this kind of cartoony, fun restaurant. Everyone remembers that 90s Taco Bell aesthetic with the bright colors and all of that, the Taco Bell dog. So Taco Bell really didn't take itself too seriously. And of course KFC really didn't either. They have this old fat Kentucky man as their mascot. They kind of make themselves into a joke as well. And so for a while, KFC and Taco Bell together under one roof made sense because they had very similar images in the public eye. But in recent years, you can see from their advertising, from their rebranding, Taco Bell's really trying to go for a more serious look, which I think a lot of restaurants are. And if you look at McDonald's, for example, every new McDonald's that opens up, and they're even remodeling older ones, instead of having the classic red roof with the yellow logo and all that stuff, they go for a very brown and tan color scheme, something that's a lot more conservative and refined. Just kind of trying to be taken more seriously as a restaurant. And Taco Bell is very much doing the same thing. Taco Bell is rebuilding or rebranding a lot of their buildings. Many of them still feature purple, but you're never going to see an orange or a teal color there. And they are prominently brown, tan, these conservative colors that really would seem very alien in a Taco Bell 20 years ago. They're they're going for this very fancy look that honestly I don't see the appeal of because I'm sure everyone remembers from their childhood this classic, bright colored Taco Bell, and now it's sort of just more of a it's really trying hard to take itself seriously. And I'm sure you've noticed this just with individual Taco Bell restaurants, where our Taco Bell KFC, it's a lot closer to Taco Bell in its interior than a KFC, and it just feels out of place compared to the other Taco Bells in our town.
I'm actually going to disagree with you there. I think it's really a KFC interior, and that's the thing that one of the workers told me there.
Really?
Yeah, the wallpaper and the tables are not. Now the tables and chairs are very Taco Bell.
Yeah,
But
and
if you
that's
notice
mainly
the
what I was
wall,
referring to was the table and chairs.
okay, yeah, yeah,
But you can see what I mean by this KFC inspired interior is very different from your typical Taco Bell interior right now. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
because
If,
KFC
if you've been
is
to any modern Taco Bells, the interiors are usually pretty clean with kind of a focus on raw materials and that kind of thing.
yes, exactly. Whereas KFC kind of embraces the campiness. They try to keep this cartoony feel that they've always had, which
And I
maybe. Sorry, continue.
really that's appreciated from me as a customer because when I go to a fast food restaurant, I know that it's a fast food restaurant, and everyone there knows that it's a fast food restaurant, right?
Exactly.
So I don't see the point in pretending like it's something that it's not.
There's no point in just dressing up a fast food restaurant to make it look like you're getting a fine dining experience when you know that you're just there to feel bad about yourself and eat a shitty taco, and just destroy your body even more. Often because you're depressed or just don't care.
Yeah, it's not really as much fine dining, but just like a kind of cafe or something kind of.
Exactly. That's what McDonald's is really going for with the McCafe thing,
Yeah,
and I feel Taco Bell is kind of doing that too. Um,
that's been my impression.
Not as much, but yeah. Well, what if I told you that KFC maybe shouldn't be applauded? Because KFC really, it seems like KFC is keeping their old style, not out of a commitment to what KFC used to be and what it stands for, but almost more out of laziness or out of just not caring about this side of the brand. Because KFC,
That's
sorry,
that's an interesting point. But also, I mean, I don't think a redesigning of the brand is really completely necessary for most fast food places, and I think KFC is one of those. People who go there kind of know what they're getting, right?
exactly.
And a fresh coat of paint isn't going to change that.
Yeah, you're right on that one. I will agree. Uh, but KFC, I think kind of the direction that they're going in as a brand is they're focusing more on foreign markets. Because if you think about it, in the United States, how many fast food or how many fried chicken themed fast food restaurants can you think of that exist in the United States? Just name them off.
Um, Zaxby's, Chick-fil-A, KFC, Bojangles, Popeyes, and I can't think of too many more.
But you thought of a
But that's
solid
just
you thought of
five.
a solid five in about 5 to 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Now, how many taco chains can you name?
Uh, just Taco Bell, and I know that there's one in California, but I don't know the
Yeah,
name.
and that one's not nearly as big. Um, so KFC has a lot of competition coming from other fast food fried chicken places, and of course, two or three of the ones that you mentioned are exclusive to the South, but I know more exist in other parts of the country. And so if you open up a KFC in pretty much any town, it's not the only fast food fried chicken place around. There are going to be a lot more. For Taco Bell, it's really the only one. And KFC knows this. Because KFC has actually closed a lot of locations in the US in the past several years. Because our KFC Taco Bell, it's closing, and instead of KFC and Taco Bell opening up, we're just getting a KFC. So our town is going from having two KFCs to one KFC, and a lot of towns have seen this as well. So it's interesting, but in other countries, these fast food chains, because a lot of the other fried chicken fast food chains are smaller, they haven't really spread there yet, whereas KFC has. So KFC actually has a very big presence in countries like China or Japan compared to other places, because I feel a lot of the market in those countries feels like they're getting a genuine American experience with American food. I mean, Kentucky's right in the name. So actually, if you look at Yum's, that's Yum Brands, it's the company that owns KFC and Taco Bell. If you look at their annual report from 2015, you can see that out of the 18,000 KFC locations worldwide, the U.S. only has about 5,000. It has just under 25% of them. Whereas out of the Taco Bell locations worldwide, there are 7,000 Taco Bells, and 4,500 are in the U.S. So Taco Bell, a big percentage of these restaurants are in the United States, whereas KFC, it's under a quarter. And actually, China recently surpassed the United States as the country with the most Kentucky Fried Chickens. So China is currently the leader in most KFCs in the world. So you can see why KFC would focus on other countries more. And KFC has a lot of really strange campaigns in other countries. Like in China, they have the chitza, which is a large piece of fried chicken with pizza toppings on it. It's basically just a pizza, but instead of dough, you just have a big flat piece of fried chicken, which is something that's a lot more daring than I think they do in the US. And part of that might be just because it's kind of meant to encapsulate U.S. culture.
Yeah, and part of me wonders if this large amount of KFC outside of the U.S. is part of the reason that KFC is not shedding its older, more campy image, as you said.
Exactly, because
they're partially riding on this as being kind of part of the American experience.
Yeah, because this campy image is very ingrained in U.S. culture. It's something that's been around for a while, and it's almost a caricature of U.S. culture. So I'd say especially for other countries, I can see how this is a big part of what they think of when they think of America. And that makes sense why they'd have all these comedians playing Colonel Sanders in like these recent KFC ads, because he's kind of just a caricature of what you think of, like when you think of like American, a Southern person. He's a very stereotypical American, and especially how he's portrayed in these commercials, you can see they're kind of selling America to you almost, as dumb as that may sound.
Yeah, and as a place that doesn't take itself very seriously for a good number of years now, I think that probably has some appeal. Whereas with Taco Bell, if there's a Taco Bell in another country, or there aren't as many, so they probably don't rely on that kind of contrast with the other restaurants in the area, right? Since they're okay with going a little bit more neutral.
Because I feel like Taco Bell is really not trying hard to stand out, whereas KFC, its very thing is almost just to stand out. That's like its point now, especially in other countries, but even in the U.S., they're really trying to be noticed. Whereas Taco Bell wants just this presence where it's something that's just always there. It's like trees or something. You don't really constantly think that a tree is there or that like the grass is there. It's just part of the atmosphere. And Taco Bell's kind of one of that. It's like, oh, it's one of those Taco Bells, again. Or, oh, it's a little coffee shop, something like that. That type of place. Whereas KFC, it's like, oh, look at this KFC, look at that, right there. What a fun restaurant to go to. You can see how they're going, it's very different. So when you see like a KFC Taco Bell combination restaurant, there's just this weird juxtaposition of this place that's really trying to be noticed and this place that really isn't. And usually it ends up being, usually if you have one thing that's subtle and one thing that's not subtle, the thing that isn't subtle is going to stand out. So usually it sticks out a little more, which really isn't what Taco Bell is going for. So I can really see the pressure by Yum Brands to close a lot of these restaurants. As much joy as they've brought people, simply because in the US, what they're really focusing on now is Taco Bell. And this is a brand that's hurting Taco Bell, their bigger company, and helping KFC, their smaller brand. So it makes sense that they'd want to get rid of this, as hurtful as it can be. Um, but I feel like this conversation is coming to a close. So as I mentioned at the beginning, in Morganton, North Carolina, today, our Taco Bell did close, or our KFC Taco Bell, closed. It opened its doors for the last time and shut them to never reopen them. So do you have any last words to say about KFC Taco Bell and just what it means to you?
Well, it's kind of a beacon of capitalism, and I think whether it was good or bad, I'm glad I had the experience to spend some time there.
I think so too, because I feel Taco Bell KFC it was a hell. I don't think there's any arguing that, but it's a special kind of hell. It's a hell that was really our own personal hell, a hell so terrifying that you couldn't really resist it. And a hell that we spent so much time in that it sort of became our home. It should not. KFC Taco Bell is such a cold, heartless place that it shouldn't have this warm feeling to it. But ours really did. And I think that's something very special. That, and I can't speak for other KFC Taco Bells, because I believe I've only ever been to one. But just having a place that's so corporate and greedy, and as you said, just a beacon of capitalism, really only to make money, it feels like home. It's a place that's very welcoming and just invites you right in to its doors with welcome arms.
And that's exactly what they're relying on you feeling to draw you back in.
Maybe so, but I don't think ours will really be able to draw us back in now.
Yeah.
Well, as terrible of a place as it is, I've got to say, I'm really going to miss KFC Taco Bell. Because it was just a part of our home for as long as we lived there. And driving by the empty building, it just won't feel right. What would be a good closing sentence for this podcast?
I'm not really sure. Can you think of something later, maybe?
I could.
You're going to edit this podcast a little bit, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know what time it is.
It's pretty late. It's 2:00.
2 a.m.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, I really have to go then.
Yep. Real quick, I'll just say. So KFC Taco Bell, you will be missed. All right, there we go. I think that's good.